I'm going to show you how we took a barbershop coaching offer to 5x ROAS in 30 days on a cold pixel with no prior ad history and for a brand that has only ever used Instagram and TikTok organic. So we spent $3,000, we made $15,000. It was just in 30 days. So this is Zach. He had a great offer, but zero infrastructure. He owns barbershops and he runs EBA, which is Exclusive Barbering Academy, a coaching offer built to help barbershop owners hire, fill chairs, and scale. The product worked, but the audience didn't really match it. Zach owns 2 barbershops. He had 3 different types of people inside of his audience. He had clients that wanted to get haircuts from him. He also had barbers that wanted to learn the craft from him on how to do haircuts and how to get clients. And then finally, the smallest percentage of his audience, barbershop owners that needed help scaling, which is the main buyer that we wanted to isolate out of these 3 different buckets within his audience. So here's his Instagram profile. Here's 108,000 followers. He's grown a massive personal brand for himself. The first step was the diagnosis. The bottleneck really wasn't the offer. Before we turned on ad spend, we just wanted to make sure who he was really selling to. Zach already had a working coaching offer, but he was serving 2 different ICPs at once. ICP means ideal client profile. He was serving individual barbers, like I mentioned earlier, and barbershop owners. His content only spoke to barbers, however. He didn't really make barbershop owner content. The pipeline he had within Go High Level was mixed between both. The first paid push we made really surfaced the problem for us. It really just told us which audience to cut and which to scale. So as you can see, barbers on average are broke. They have low ticket tolerance. And basically now we just sell them a course. We don't do one-on-one mentorship with them anymore. We don't want to give Zach's time to that. His time is high leverage with shop owners. As you can see, they have real spending power. They have real pressure. They have chairs, hires, payroll. They have higher buying intent. They want specific transformations. And we've dedicated our entire pipeline and sales team attention to only shop owners. So as you can see before, we're doing both. And now we're just doing shop owners. The one ICP that has higher spending power and that we wanted to make the pipeline filled with. So the audit surfaced a few different things. We realized, again, I mentioned we have a mixed ICP of barbers and shop owners, even people that wanted to get haircuts from Zach inside of his Instagram. The content Zach was making was literally only content for barbers. His organic was only speaking to people that rented chairs instead of people that owned them. Wherever we were going to run ads, we were just nervous at the fact that if we're running barbershop owner ads and he has barber content, it would be the wrong message. We rebuilt that message in his content before we actually went into the ads. So keep in mind, this is before we started working with Zach. His discovery is very pitch heavy. They just strictly spoke about EBA. They spoke about the benefits of EBA, what we could do for them. All features really before excavating the real cost of staying where they are. So prospects just left with a bunch of knowledge on what EBA is rather than moved under current situation, which is something we had to fix. He also had a system that wasn't built to handle volume. There was a lot of manual booking, manual follow-up, manual reminders. Double lead flow would have collapsed with the operation, honestly. If we brought in a lot more leads, there was a lot of things that would have broken inside the actual bucket. We don't want to have the leaky bucket. We want to patch everything up and make it systematized. Also, cold traffic had no reason to trust Zach except for obviously his authority and 108K followers. But if we're targeting shop owners and majority of his content is actually barbers oriented, it was just going to be another stranger or another coach that people saw on an ad. Here's the actual ad that we ran. The hook was specifically ran for shop owners, not barbers. And that's the only reason it worked. One change to who we spoke to changed everything downstream. So just to give you an example of what the ad looked like, let me share my audio.
If you're a shop owner and you're working more hours than anybody else at the shop and you're doing the marketing, you're cleaning up and you're cutting hair just to hit 10 to 15K in a month, then we need to talk. 3 weeks.
If you want to see the full ad, just hit me up, or you can really just find it in Facebook ad library. Not that hard. Next, we built out the system. We built a massive machine before we even went to cold traffic. So first, we refixed the Go High Level pipeline. He did have Go High Level, but we really narrowed it down in terms of which stages we wanted to have in the pipeline. We wanted to have all the way from triage or opt-ins to triage to close to no-shows. We wanted to have every stage mapped out. We wanted to make sure everything was auto-tagged based on the source and what kind of prospect it was. Was it a shop owner? Was it a barber? Were they from Instagram, TikTok, Facebook? I wanted to know. Next, we set up an SDR and a power dialer. So Zach had no SDR nor a power dialer. So this lets us call many leads very quick. Instead of an SDR going and just calling one person one by one, it calls everybody, not at the same time, but it just goes in order of calling people. And whenever someone picks up, it goes straight to the SDR. We adapted to triage first because when we were doing speed to lead, it really gave us an issue with our SDR time availability. And the SDR was already trained up. So instead of going to find a new SDR then and there, we switched to when people booked in from ads, they would book into the triage calendar so that the time they book for is when the SDR calls them to triage them. And then we place them on a closing call after if they qualify. Yes, this really extends the sales process. And obviously the goal is to make as much money as quick as possible. But what really matters to us here is that we want every lead to go through a certain experience. We don't want to just put them in front of the office offer right away. Yes, we can make them offer aware, solution aware, but first let's make them know, like, and trust Zach, which is into my next point, weekly webinars. This is really how you recreate the organic sales process. It warmed up cold traffic. It positions Zach as the expert. It gets them to know, like, and trust him. It drives intention before they make a decision on the call. And what we do is SMS blast every single opt-in before the Wednesday webinar. So leading up to Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're blasting these people, letting them know we're having a webinar. And the messaging literally speaks to them because the ad brings them in if they don't have that many chairs filled, if they need to fill the chairs because they're leaving money on the table. So these people have a problem, which is why they opted in or booked in the first place, to tell them we have a free class. Not everybody's likely to show up, but people do show up, and it really has converted a lot of people for us. No shows from the week prior, no closes from the week prior. Basically, the whole pipeline gets hit up to come to this webinar, as well as in their emails, we hit them up as well. Every prospect that we've had on a call has seen Zach present live for the closing call. Even if they show up to the closing call and they haven't seen a webinar, those people likely don't buy. Go to a webinar, come back, and then buy. So the post-webinar review is something we implemented as well. So every time Zach had a webinar, people are asking questions in there. And we also have the opportunity to present things in front of them. So what we do is, from all the setting calls and all the closing calls, we look at all the objections and limiting beliefs that these barbershop owners have and implement it right away into the slide deck of the webinar, which handles everything as they go on and positions Zach as a massive expert. I mentioned this earlier, but with the triage first booking, basically they book into the triage calendar instead of the actual closer calendar. Now, I'm a firm believer that we should definitely have speed to lead. Obviously, they didn't have speed to lead, which we wanted to get them, and they had issues with it, which I don't want to go too deep into right now, but we switched it to the triage calendar. Our next pivot with this offer is actually going to be going back to speed to lead, but now we do have to book into the triage calendar. And honestly, it works out because they get to attend the webinar before it. Sometimes they get to watch more content of Zach's before, because we email and SMS them. We have a good post-booking page and make sure that they watch it. Also, the time that these people book in for, I'm not sure if they're going to read the post-booking page. I'm not sure if they're going to know it's on Zoom. A lot of these barbers are older as well, so it's good that we book in for a triage call, because we just ring their phone at the time of, and we also obviously SMS them, letting them know the call's coming up. And then we reframe them to show up the right way for the closing call, because sometimes these barbers just, oh, this is cool, let me book, and not read anything, and they show up to the closing call not ready to really take the call on Zoom, or they're late, or they're not in a quiet spot. We want to make sure we frame them the right way. And yes, if we had speed to lead, we could inform them the right way, but obviously our team had an issue with speed to lead, which is what we're working on now. That's the next thing we're working on inside of there. But I also want to be completely honest with you guys and show you what we went through for this offer. Next, we trained our closer on barbershop economics. No script. Our closers are completely scriptless, and we want to give them a deep understanding of the shop owner's world. Obviously, they need to understand exactly why it's important for the shop owners to fill their chair, how much revenue they can make, what are the hiring costs, what really is their cost for having empty chairs, why are barbers incentivized to fill their chairs besides just getting booth rent. And again, I don't want to go too deep into Zach's offer, but we got to train him by doing role plays, by showing him Zach's content, explaining the psychology behind shop owners, as well as doing call reviews. We review each setter call, we review each closing call, so we get insights on how to talk to these people, how to handle objections, and how to handle limiting beliefs, and then also feed them into our webinar. So that goes into my next thing, daily call reviews. Is how we get the system smarter every single day. Yes, we have AI taking all the call transcripts, but we definitely want to keep that human touch. Setter calls are completely reviewed, and this lets us rewrite the script sometimes to fix where we could have asked something better. Obviously, we don't want to always alter the script, but sometimes we see commonalities between all the setting calls, which allows us to alter the script in the right and appropriate spots. And the closers are given direct input from their setter side. The setter and closers have a really good relationship when it comes to the sales process. Again, we handle all common objections, limiting beliefs on the webinars, as well as on the closing calls, as well as we make Zach make custom videos actually to send to the prospects prior to the closing call, which helps out as well. The script, it evolves week over week. It's not really just one set script. We always want to implement, improve, and upgrade our script, so that we want to make sure we're staying on top of the ICP and getting more like them every single day. Also, we make a custom pitch deck per every single call. Again, we have AI. It doesn't take that much time. People think it takes a lot of work. It's not a lot of work. You have a template and you implement things you find on the actual setting call, so that when they show up for their closing call, it's completely tailored for them. The setter script's going to surface the exact pain, the exact budget, the situation, limiting beliefs, goals, and that intel feeds directly into the pitch deck that the closer uses on the closing call. And the closer walks in already knowing what matters to the specific prospect. Even though they run their own discovery and different things pop up in that call, we have a great understanding of who the person is prior. This makes one call closes become repeatable, because the closer's never going in blind. They're always going to look at their pitch deck. They're always going to look at their notes before they go into the call. Obviously, we had to re-architecture the funnel. When we ran ads, we started going into certain things that kind of broke. We want to adapt very quick. So again, I mentioned we started with the speed to lead. We switched it to the triage calendar, dialing prospects within minutes of opting in. That's another thing we wanted to really implement. People that don't book, we want to still call us because we're on top of their mind. We want to get them into the calendar. I completely preach speed to lead. If your team can run speed to lead, all my other offers are really good with speed to lead, but this specific offer is where I had an issue with it, especially with the barbers answering right after they book. I feel like they don't always answer. So in Zach's case, we adapted. The calls were feeling awkward with the cold traffic. We had just seen one ad, so we had to book them into the triage slot as well. It's another reason we wanted them to just get more familiar with Zach prior to talking to a representative, even though the representative should be skilled enough to handle the prospect, which is what he's working on right now. They show up at a time that they already committed to on the phone. And it wasn't the perfect answer, but it was the right answer for the team at the time. And we had to adapt. And it worked for us. We had a 5x return on ad spend. So things worked out really well. So adapt faster than your funnel breaks, I would really say. Our original funnel was, of course, ad opt-in, and then they book in for the closers calendar, and then the SDR is supposed to call them within minutes. But this is definitely the right way to do things. Now what we're doing is the adapted way. When they opt in for the ad and then they book in, they actually book in for the triage slot, and that's when we call them. Prospects showed up at a time they already completely committed to, and they weren't expecting a Zoom call, and then we just called them right on the phone. This actually solved our show up problem because not a lot of people knew how to use Zoom, these 50, 60-year-old barbers, which is our ICP. We also changed the closing call philosophy. We went from 1 call closes to 2 call closes. Now we're back to 1 call closes. Again, we're adapting and learning every time we do call reviews. 1 call close, we launched with this. We went to a 2 call close process. Even with the triager, 1 call and then a 2nd call, which is really extending the process out and lets them get a lot of touch points and a lot of webinar consumption. But we went back to 1 call because our closer understood it's really a skill deficiency, not a content deficiency. Even though content really matters, the triage call and the closing call in between all that time, as well as when they book, is enough time for them to know, like, and trust Zach enough to build up enough pain on that closing call to actually buy. Next part is the results. The numbers from the first 30 days of doing ads. We spent $3,000. We made $15,000 back with a 5x return on ad spend on a brand new pixel, no retargeting pool, no warm audience, no prior ad history, completely built from scratch in 1 month. The lessons we learned is ads don't make the money. The system that ads have, what I realized from most coaches I talk to, or even just research, they just run straight to a booking page. There's no triage, no nurture, no pre-call sequence. The funnel is just a single point of failure. The way you make your prospects show up. So we built the machine first and then turn on that cold traffic. So we got the pipeline built up, we got the dialer ready to go, the webinars ready to go, the triaging, the closer training, everything wired together before $1 was spent. So we had the best fighting chance to make as much money as possible. So the ad built to bring people to the door, to make people aware that they have a problem, to make them aware that there's a solution, to even be convinced that they need to fill their chairs is what the ad is responsible for. The rest is on us. What we did was obviously build a system and scale from there. The infrastructure built before traffic is turned on. That's why month 1 numbers look like this. So here's my call to action, guys. If your offer was in the same position EVA was in, DM me on Instagram. Apply in the description of this YouTube channel. Even if we don't wind up working together, I could guarantee you're going to learn some things and that you can implement the next day that will definitely help you scale your offer. And if you're a sales rep watching this somehow and you want to work as a closer, SDR, DM setter, I have a lot of offers. Reach out or apply below. DM me on Instagram, apply in the description, and we can work together. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to answer. If you want any of the stuff we did within the weeds of this launch as well, hit me up and I can give them to you. And have a nice rest of your day.